Good morning, my creative friends, and welcome to Painting in Your PJs with Minette. I'm Dr. Minette Riordan. Super excited to be here with you as always. This is such a fun time for me of really committing to my own consistent creative practice of just showing up to play, to experiment. This is never about creating a product. Sometimes things turn out really pretty and I love them, and sometimes maybe not so much. But this show, Painting in Your PJs with Minette, is about how I use art as a creative practice for self-discovery. It's not step-by-step instruction. It's like follow along with me and let's see what we can co-create. And you kind of hear my thought process and rambling as I go along. I'm super passionate about supporting women in midlife and beyond to live your best life, to find your purpose, to feel authentic, and reconnect to that innate creativity that really lives inside of all of us. And this month we are doing that. Good morning, Lorraine. This month we are doing that through making some paper dolls on tags to be able to include them in our art journal. And I realize I had my finished tag from last week and I don't know where I put her. I was going to show her, but I will find her and show her at another time. Hey, Karen, good morning. And so today we're going to be creating our second tag in a 4 tag series. The first tag was really all about connecting to our radiant self. And today is sort of tapping into our inner wild, to the aspect of ourselves that feels a little bit untamed, but also nostalgic. This is that childlike sense of summer wonder, no school, running wild and free, and recapturing that even at 60 or 50 or 40 or 70 or 80, whatever age you're currently at, just reconnecting to that inner sense of what's blooming and alive within me now. And I have some journal prompts to help us get started thinking about this. I'm going to put those prompts into the chat. It doesn't let me make them very pretty, but they're also in the description of the video if you're watching the replay. If you're here live, I love it when you just say hi in the chat. Let me know that you're here with me. Super excited. You too, Katie. And the prompts are, I'll also read them. The first one is, what parts of me have bloomed unexpectedly in midlife, or I would say and beyond? What makes me feel wild, untamed, and alive? And what kind of environment, either my internal season and weather or external environment, really helps me to thrive? And so those are kind of the things that I'm thinking about today as I dive into my tag making. And I've gathered a few things here to kind of play with. I have maybe some ideas. Tori, welcome, my friend. So glad you're back. And that, I want to play with and consider as I start down this path today of creating this wildflower woman, or this blooming self. And last week in part 1 of this 4-part series, I showed how I was using some printed faces to create my little templates. And I wish I knew what I did with my finished tag. I took a video of it. Let's see if I can show, if I have a picture of it on my phone. Dun, 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 dun. Where'd that silly, I made a whole video. If you follow me on Instagram, there's a video of it. Oh, here it is on my Instagram account. And let's see if I play this all the way to the end. You can see that I added some fun little doodads and flowers. I think maybe that was Lorraine's idea last week. And It's just going to keep going. I thought I had a static photo, but anyway, doesn't matter. But these are so fun and simple to create. I love working on tags. I'm looking forward to seeing the four of them together and putting them into one of the journals that I'm working in. And I'm working on quite a large tag. This is about, I believe, a 4 by 8 tag. Oh, it's a little bent, and I love working on this size tag. And as always, I love to start by just doing some journaling on whatever substrate that I'm working on so that I sort of just plant the intention. This is just notes for me. It is not for anyone else. There's nothing to remember here. If there's something really important that comes out of the journaling, then I would just transfer it to a journal, or more often, I simply just take a picture and keep the picture or print the picture out and paste it into a journal. But my intention here is not writing words to keep, but just to sort of get my creative juices flowing, get something down on this blank page that's going to get me started on my creative process today. And when I think about the parts of me that have bloomed unexpectedly, really probably starting in my late 40s all the way to now at 60, I would say it's my inner artist has come back, in full bloom over the last decade plus. Other things, really connecting to sage and kind of that wise woman archetype are things that have really started to bloom. I feel like my work feels more aligned than ever, and that I feel more intentional and on purpose in my life. And this has been a long process of a decade of self discovery. It's not something that I just figured out overnight, but something that really has bloomed over time, right? And I think it's like those cycles of nature, things, unless you live in California where things bloom all the time, most of the time, there's seasonal moments when things bloom and then they go fallow, right? And it's thinking about these cycles of life can help us to see, maybe something bloomed a little and then over time it began to bloom more fully. And the things that make me feel wild, untamed, and alive are definitely intuitive expression and being in nature, especially my beautiful Rocky Mountain National Park, being up in the mountains, on top of a rock, looking out at these like incredible views. But being in nature frequently keeps me thriving, even if it's just a walk in my neighborhood. And so the environment for me is like I need to live near nature, and I want to notice that my internal environment sometimes feels calm, like a slow moving river. Sometimes it feels tempestuous and stormy. I was awoken in the middle of the night last night by so much loud rain on the roof and a like really loud thunder coming through. So I notice how when I'm paying attention to my internal environment, I notice when is it stormy, when is it calm. I notice what does it need in order to be soothed. And then even in my environment here in my studio, I have a curated environment. Sometimes it gets really messy and it needs to get decluttered and order brought back so that I have a clean slate to play with and not feel completely overwhelmed by everything. So when I think about what's blooming, this is kind of what I think about. And here's some of the little, faces and dolls that I started last week. And I think this little one here is really calling to me today. The poet laureate, actually, I really like her too, of Colorado, passed away this week, very young from ovarian cancer. Her name was Andrea Gibson, and I wasn't familiar with her, but saw someone share about her and went down the rabbit hole of exploring, and what a beautiful voice she was. And it's interesting because this face reminds me of them. Sorry, not her, them reminds me of them, and this really homage to the poet within me as well, inspired by so many other amazing poets. And in my membership, the Sisterhood of Wisdom and Wonder, we have been really living into a lot of poetry this week as well, and the last 2 weeks. And so poetry seems to be on my heart right now. So I think it's going to be her. There's something about her face. It's not about the wildness, but there's a sense of confidence for me when I look at the expression on her face. So I'm going to go with this one. And this is, again, just a face that I traced. Where are all my faces? Those are all my coloring pages from, we have our next mythical makeover experience coming up very soon. And apparently I don't have my faces. I have like 15 projects on this little tiny table at the moment, and it's all feeling very cluttered. Okay, so here's one. So basically, I gave you guys in my email, for my email list, a bunch of faces of all different sizes and expressions, all smiling and radiant and happy. And then I simply made my own graphite paper, traced that onto some nice mixed media paper, added an abstract body in order to create the doll. You could 100% do this with collage. You can tell I'm a little scattered this morning, and have a very full day, and was trying to do 15 things before I arrived here for a little bit of calm play. But you could hand draw your faces onto these bodies. You could use magazine images or photographs as inspiration. We can be very intimidated by drawing faces, so make this as simple and easy as it can be for you personally. And a lot of times I like to gesso if I'm going to paint on these, but I'm feeling like this is going to be very collagey today, so I don't necessarily need to add gesso to this if I'm feeling a little more collagey. I'm going to zoom in on my face here, and give me a second while I refocus her. There we go, that's better. And back to my camera. And like I did last week, I love using the Carinda Ash Neo Color 2 water-soluble crayons for working really small like this and creating faces. It's easy to blend colors. And I'm just going to do her face. I found this piece of hand painted fabric from another experiment that I was playing with, and this beautiful blooming fabric is going to be her body and her dress. Might get some slow stitching added to her over the weekend. Thank you, Teddy, and good morning or good afternoon. I had so much fun using AI to design all these new faces for our creative inspiration this month. And sometimes, like, I'm not bad at drawing faces, but what I love about having an image to start with, whether it's just a magazine image, is that the sometimes what's the hardest is if to get different expressions and to have them look, different. So she is definitely feeling like this mature, wise woman with her beautiful gray hair. And mine, as my hairdresser told me last time I saw her, is getting grayer and grayer all the time. And I am so okay with my gray hair. And I'm just getting that base layer of color on there, keeping it pretty transparent, pretty loose as I go along here. Again, not worrying too much. I'm going to keep her really simple. I'm going to let that face dry, and then I'm going to come in with a fine tip black marker and bring some of the expressions and details back. Feels like she wants to have some blue eyes, so we'll get a little bit of color there. A little bit of color on her lips, maybe a little bit of that pink on her cheeks. I'm noticing that this mixed media paper is pilling quite a bit if I overwork it, so I'm being very gentle with the brush and the water here. And I need a rag, tissue. And I'm just taking some of that little bit of that color back off. So I'm going to set her aside to dry because you don't ever want to go over your wet marker or crayon or whatever you're using with a good marker, because guess what? You will ruin the tip of that marker. And I learned that lesson the hard way. All right, she has a sweet face. So let's come back to our tag here. Let's see if we can get a little more light in there. I'm going to have her dress here. And again, I'm keeping these bodies intentionally very abstract. Let's get this little bit more patterny piece. It's all about the expression and the collage. It's all about the energy of the piece. It's not about making it super realistic or detailed. Did I do that right? I did do that right. Making sure you put your doll upside down on your fabric or paper that you're tracing so that you get the shape and the pattern going in the right direction. These are such dull scissors for cutting fabric. I made her neck a little longer than I need so that I can figure out where I wanted to go. I also did not cut off the bottom edge of the dress so I can play with the length relative to the tag. Plus I love the little shaggy bit of this here down at the bottom as well. She feels very grandmotherly, maybe a little sort of wise woman, crone-like. It's great to have you here, Teddy. And just leaning into that energy of my own inner wise woman, right? That's also blooming at 60, really, honoring that I'm stepping into a lot that feels new, right? Feels new, it feels fresh, it feels different. All right, her shape over here is not quite making me happy. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit, make her just a little bit more abstract. There we go. That feels a little bit better. And if you felt like you wanted your doll to feel a little more realistic, you could add some arms or even some feet. but I love these very abstract shapes. And I'm just going to glue the fabric on for now, and then again, once it's completely dry, we'll come back and add some slow stitching and detail, maybe even some beads to her dress. Start at the top there. There we go. Didn't quite get her exactly lined up, but that's okay. We'll just trim her up. She's decided she wants to be a little more slender. All right. Her face isn't quite dry yet, so let's come over here to her tag. And I have a few pieces that I've gathered. It felt like words were really important to include. It's funny, I'm very drawn to the word corroborate on here, right? Which is support or confirm with evidence. And, as I'm blooming, there's a sense of like the corroboration is about noticing that I'm blooming. So maybe that would be a fun little piece to, sorry, I'm sure that's blurry as I lift it up. So I might cut that out. Oh, this is actually all three of these words somehow feel fun. Correspond, corridor, a hallway, which always feels like a threshold, and maybe even just some fun paper on here. That might be an upper layer. I also, from a craft magazine, I picked up, look at this, these beautiful mosaics. I was very drawn to this owl this morning, so I think she wants this owl companion. If you know me at all, you know I love animals, animal symbolism. Most of my paintings are of animals. So there's our owl, but I loved this part on this other side of this mosaic that felt very much like this sense of blooming. There was a cute little fox. Love these trees. Love that sunshine. So just starting to feel these pieces coming together. When you're working on tags or smaller pieces like this, one of the things to think about that's interesting is that let things hang over the edge, right? So there's no need to, it's really all the glary on that shiny paper, isn't it? But let's see, fussing with the lights. Let them hang over the edge. You can always trim the edges later rather than trying to get things to fit. It's actually much more effective and time saving to just get all the pieces on here and then to kind of shift it as you go along. So something about these words feel like really connecting to my own inner wisdom. This is a little scrap of a painty piece, so a little bit of someone else's art feels fun on here. That owl might even just need to hang over the edge here. I really love that sun. Don't want her to be centered on there. Want a little more visual interest. These feel like maybe they're part of her story. But then these words. There might need to be some paint added on here to kind of start to move it around and make it a little more my own. I might have to get a little bit of paint out. Good morning, Anna. Welcome. First time joining live. Delighted to have you. Welcome to our fun little early morning community. So I'm liking where this is going. It's definitely feeling interesting, and I want to, make sure that it continues to feel like me and to tell this story of this wildflower woman blooming. So the flowers are kind of loosely represented here. And I'm feeling like it's not about the words, it is about the image and the wisdom. And I've got a box with some flowers and stickers here that I grabbed. And I'm seeing there's a little bit of gold shiny paper that's capturing my eye. I am such a magpie and I love shiny things. So she might need a little shimmer to represent her blooming. What else we got? Oh, here's some pretty butterflies, that blooming transformation, attracted to flowers. And I have all these great stickers, but they may all be too big. And I'm going to grab a handful of these flowers, and look, here's a whole thing of stick-on gems. These dolls have wanted to be, oh, there's some pretty flowers. These dolls have wanted to be very blingy. I ended up adding quite, hi Yvonne, welcome. So good to see everybody back today. They're wanting to be blingy and shiny. Something about this particular set of dolls and really connecting to that sense of radiance, right? And as I'm gathering all this stuff and that sense of blooming, my feeling is that the tag is almost too small. We're connecting to that sense of wildness, that sense of the untamed, right? And definitely it feels like there is a lot blooming and happening as we come together. And does she want this? She's like, nope, because I think she's so connected to nature, this aspect of me, this wildflower woman, that she's not wanting, like, this feels too blingy. So that'll get saved perhaps for one of our other dolls. She definitely likes, it almost feels like she needs a string of pearls on here, right? Or something. But yeah, she's wanting a little more like little more texture, little more layers added. So these under layers feel good. And I'm going to go ahead and glue some of this stuff down. And we'll just get started. I'm trying to use up, I've got these old cheapy Elmer's Kids glue sticks. They dry clear, they go on purple, which I guess is good for kids, and they're not my favorite glue sticks, but I am diligently, I want that to be as far up there on the top as I can, using them up. And this is where, that example of just like letting this piece flow over the edges and the ends, and it will get trimmed up later. So a little bit of these words in here. And you could do this with matte medium. It's a nice way to kind of seal everything in together. But sometimes when I just want to get it done and have a little more speed and be able to work in fast layers, I love using just a plain old glue stick. All right, where are you going to go? So there's the bottom of the tag. We'll just fold that up for now. Okay, she wants to go there. So maybe we'll bring some more of this blue up in here. And I'm trying to decide if I want to just put a little wash of color over the whole thing because the background is busy and I want her to really stand out, and I want to keep this bright, but a simple way to do that, get her out of the way so I don't get her painty. I'm going to take a little bit of, this is one of my favorite, this Amsterdam turquoise green is a favorite, and I'm going to mix it with just a tiny little bit of matte medium to give it a little more transparency. And then I'm literally going to just come in and see how many times today apparently I can say the word literally. Ha! And I'll smooth this out in a minute. Let's see if I've got a little, where'd my scraper go? I had it just a minute. Do you just lose things like right in front of you on your desk all the time? The virtue of working in a small space. Let's see, this sponge will work. This old brush is falling apart, but it's a good one to use with matte medium, which can gum up your brushes. Oh, I even kind of like maybe I am just going to leave all that texture in there. It kind of matches some of the texture. Like, the sense is this can't be perfect, right? This is connecting to kind of that wild, untamed, blooming part of self. And I feel like it needs a little bit of green down here to kind of give it some ground. So I'm just going to mix it right with that blue. I'm not even going to wash my brush. How's everybody doing today? So when you think about this idea of sort of your own sense of connecting to what's blooming now, what would you say is blooming in your own life right now? What is blooming in your own life right now? That's what it needed. It just needed some little bit of my own hand put in there. I'm definitely going to want to add that stitching to the doll to make her stand out even more. I definitely won't get all that done in the time I have to play this morning. Sometimes the tags come together really quickly. Sometimes there's this definite, oh, this is going to take some time as her story starts to emerge. Let's see. I want to make sure I bring some of that pops of yellow in, and I was going to do some paint, but maybe we'll just, if we get some of these flowers in here, really get all of that blooming happening. They kind of match the fabric of her dress as well. But I'd love to hear from some others. What's blooming in your life right now? What's blooming in your life right now? And she's not going to get glued down, which means our owl probably is not going to get glued down right now either. And I'm going to try some of these on for size and color. And I think she might want one of these big butterflies up there at the top. Connecting to the wild within and the wild without. So that one maybe is too matchy-matchy. Kind of like bringing in some of that purple color. Definitely needs to be one of these smaller butterflies. And And I'm going to go ahead and trim my tag so I make sure I get the butterfly on the tag. I'm just going up right along the edge, cutting off any of those little extra bits, making a big mess on my craft table. There's nothing like collage. I'm always surprised when I have an in-person event or retreat and collage is so much messier than painting. People often think that painting is messier, but it's definitely collage is up there with all of the paper scraps that get made. Okay, I love that little bit of purple and probably gonna want to, bring some of that purple in somewhere else. Love this little bit of orange here. And she's ready to have her face put on as well. And again, this is that feels like there is lots blooming in my life that I'm very grateful for. Feels like lots of blooming flowers telling the story. I love it, Tori. Your creative productivity and organization seems to be blooming, and it's so fun. Your house isn't very clean, but oh well. I totally resemble that remark. I think she's going to have some little blingy bits. Give her some butterfly wings. You guys always have fun ideas. So what if let me find one of these other big stickers. Let's see. I can get the package open. Some dragonfly wings. Maybe these pretty pink wings. She could have those pink wings floating up behind her like she has wings. Like that, Yvonne. The flowers might have to go on top of the wings. That's pretty fun. She's very cute. I love how she's coming together. Okay, she's saying she wants her face drawn on. And she needs a flower in her hair here too. So this is where I'm using just a really great idea. Of course it's cute. It was your amazing idea. Um, just using a fine tip Sharpie gel pen here to just loosely, lightly go over the details of that face in kind of a sketchy style. Gives it even more of that sort of hand-drawn look. Not trying to get it all perfect. Not trying to capture every line that's underneath, but just to get that sense of just brings her to life by adding those little delicate black lines. And I can even come in and just give some texture to her hair here. Nice curly hair. She might need a little tiny gemstone on her ear, or for some reason, I'm looking at her going, I think she needs some pearls. So I might see what I have in my stash that would work for that. She's like, I want some bling in my hair. So I think this is going to go. The one last week ended up with a flower in her hair too. So maybe there's a theme, and it'll be interesting to see as we go through these four aspects of self and these four stories, what might emerge that feels the same or similar that ties them all together, right? That reminds me that these aren't separate, but they're all part of me. All right, now it feels like that story is starting to come together, and I'm trying to decide, do I want to take the time to stitch her, or I can probably just draw on the fabric as if I were adding some stitches. It just needs that little bit of detail and some little bolder lines to kind of help it sort of come to life a little bit more. I think the flowers were just a stencil and some spray paint through the stencil. Using a sort of teal colored Inkjoy pen. I love these pens. And black felt too harsh, and but this is feeling like it's bringing just a little bit of that extra zhuzh that it needed to kind of just make sure you could actually see those flowers. Again, working fast and loose. Somebody in my Sisterhood of Wisdom and Wonder said in our live call this week that one of the best things she's gotten out of the membership was learning to work fast, not to overthink things, not to get too attached, right? But to just give ourselves permission to just get things down, whether that is words or images. Just needs to brighten her up a little bit here. And it's fun to paint on fabric. You can paint on fabric just like you can on paper. And acrylics will stay put. If you use watercolor on fabric, you get really fun spreading and interesting things happening. But if you want the color to stay put, definitely use acrylic. Let's see. Just need a little bit of green here. That greeny blue. All right, that feels better. Some little bright pops of color, but if we're being blooming and wild, there's nothing like some fluorescence to come along and really brighten things up quite a bit. There we go. Now she's feeling happier. Again, every time we add our own mark, our own choice of colors to even something as simple as a stencil, we're making it our own, right? It doesn't look like anybody else's version. And the butterfly is going to get a little bit of that neon pink added there as well. One of the things to know about working with fluorescents is they are very, very translucent. So they are great for final layers in a painting. They're also great for mixing with other colors to sort of make them a little bolder and brighter. Get that all the way around. Okay, now she feels like she's really coming to life. Like it just takes as long as it takes for that story to unfold and emerge. And I love I was drawn to that gold at first, but it's just that little bit of sparkle sparkle in that butterfly. That's just what she needed. And she's wanting these. I think I may just, rather than sticking them individually, just glue this whole thing down. So again, that sense of, blooming where you're planted, of abundance and riches. So I'm going to see if I might have to use double stick tape. We'll see what happens. I'm just going to stick this whole line of these down here, and that purple will, like I said, dry clear. And I'm going to take the sticky back off of that butterfly. Okay, now she feels happy, happy. Let's get some of this pink down here as well. And then we're going to get some more of these flowers on. Definitely need some more yellow on here. I love these little paper flowers. They are so much fun to play with. You can find them, I think I got them at Michael's. I'm sure you can find them online in a variety of places. But they are such an easy way to just add a little dimension and texture. Let's see. And my fingers are so sticky. So she's lost one of her petals there, but that's okay. So there she is in all of her blooming glory coming together. That light is still kind of funny on there. It's hard to see all of her colors. Okay, we're gonna commit to gluing her down. All right, I'm gonna bring this owl, get that wise owl in there, her constant companion. Zoom that back out a little bit more. Me too. Thank you, Tori. I love her too. All right, let's get a couple of more these little flowers down here. And there she is. I think she's complete for now. How about that? She needs to get dried up completely, and then, I might come back and feels like she probably could use a little contrast, so she might need some little bit of some just bolder black marks in here somewhere just to notice, help move our eye around. It's all looking very bright, and sometimes all it needs is just that little bit of extra to kind of come in and make things stand out a little bit more. Love this owl. Do I have something? Let's see. Is this a jelly roll? Feels like she needs some, maybe some little stars in the sky up here. And it's always these little final pieces for me that kind of, pull it all together. Okay, I'm going to quit messing with her. I'm going to call her done for today. And, she might change or get a little something here and there added, but for the moment, she feels pretty complete. Does she need one of those on her? No, that feels like too much. Okay, so before I go completely overboard, I'm going to call her done for today. So this is my Wildflower Woman representing the untamed, blooming side of myself. And I will be back same time, same place next week. And let me go double check in my notes what that theme. So next week we're working with the theme of ocean of emotion. So we're going to go to the beach next week and to water and connecting to our emotions through our creative expression and creative play. Thanks everybody for being here. I so appreciate you and look forward to seeing what it is that you create. You can email them or post them in the Paper Doll Chronicles forum if you're a member of our email list. And so happy to be here live with all of you. If you're watching the replay, drop me a comment, like the video, let me know that you enjoyed it. Your comments mean the world to me, and they also help other people know that these are videos worth watching. Thanks, everybody, and I will see you next week. Have a beautiful rest of your week.